Hello everyone! Last time we covered the story of the plaguelands, and it looks like some of you are not quite done with the spooky stuff yet, as the next request made, that is for Duskwood.
Where the undead walk the land.
Not always known as Duskwood, of course. Once it was a beautiful land like Elwyn Forest or Westfall and the Red Ridge Mountains, a land that they called Brightwood. Bright skies and peaceful woods. While the kingdom of Stormwind prospered, its population grew, and small towns they sprang up in the surrounding area, like the town of Grand Hamlets. By the time that we get to experience the story, we see that the noble family of Ebbenlock, they've quite a ruling hold over the town. There's Lord Ello Ebbenlock, he's the mayor. His daughter Elfia Ebbenlock is the commander of the Night Watch. They're the local militia, set up in Stormwind. They pulled back its troops after the king went missing. There might also be a connection to Kendrafod Ebbenlock, a name that most warlocks out there you're probably familiar with, as he's part of the Council of the Black Harvest. Well, within Karazhan, we also see the spirits of just a Ebbenlock visiting a party housed within the tower. This is from a time where the corruption of the Guardian Medivh was still a secret to the world. Not only did he hold immense power that comes with the job as a guardian, he also had the spirits of the Dark Titan Sargeras within. It was that corruption that led to the opening of the Dark Portal, the invasion of the First Horde, but it would not remain a secret forever. Confronted and defeated, the Guardian died in combat. Something that hadn't happened for many centuries, and never before had one been possessed by demonic power. Medivh's death therefore had some drastic consequences. Fell energy exploded outward from the Tower of Karazhan, which turned the surrounding lands into a dangerous thorny blight. The region west of the tower, Brightwood of course, that would become known as Duskwood as we know it today, and home to some of the most tragic and dark stories that Warcraft has to offer. And yet, not all of the land is dark and spooky quite yet. Right in the middle, we can find the Twilight Grove, where thousands of years ago, the Night Elves, led by Fendrel Stackhelm, they planted a branch from the World Tree Nordrassil. That's what seems to save this part from the corruption. While the tree itself, it offers a direct connection to the Emerald Dream, which also houses its corruption, known as the Emerald Nightmare. This is why, in Classic, you'll see one of the 4 Dragons of Nightmare here. A corrupted green dragon, a raid boss who's just waiting to be taken on by heroes. But not just dragons remain within the Emerald Dream. We also have the slumbering Worgen. They were once night elves experimenting with their druidic powers. They took it way too far by embracing their pack form. Although powerful, it was incredibly hard to control. More often than not, we'd see that the druids striking out at their own friends and loved ones. A ritual with the Scythe of Velinde that was meant to give them more control over the form. Instead, it just pushed them further, and the Worgen came to be. With a bite, they're able to spread their feral madness. Whereas Malfurion Stormrage, their teacher, he saw no other choice but to use the Scythe and entrap them within the dream. There they would stay, eternally slumbering, and causing no further harm to the world. Fast forward a few millennia, and the Worgen will be called upon once again to fight against the demons. Velinde Starsong, sentinel and priestess amongst the Night Elves, she was put on the task of clearing their forest of the demons. She discovered notes about the Scythe, tracked down the weapon. Holding in her hand, she received a vision of chaos, the Worgen battling the Satyr. By focusing on the artifact, she was able to not only communicate with the Worgen, she was also able to bring them into our world. And for a while, things were fine. The Worgen did exactly what she hoped them to do, battle with the demons. Until she figured out that the Worgen, they no longer needed her help to come out of the dream. They no longer fully obeyed her wishes. And knowing that Archmage Otto out there, he was also doing research into summoning of the Worgen, she decided to travel and seek him out. But the Scythe of Elune is incredibly powerful, and more forces wanted to get their hands on it. The Worgen, most of all, as it was used against them in the past, and they had no intention of returning to the dream. Velinde eventually figures out that she's being followed. She tries to hide away at Roland's Doom. This mine, it would end up being eternal resting place. As the attack from the Worgen, it led to her dropping the torch, igniting some of the dynamite, and bringing the mine down on top of her. She failed in her quest, failed in her duty to her people. The Worgen run rampant, and the Scythe of her goddess, it's now lost to her. Jutting out from a pile of rubble in the mine, it was then pulled free by a man who goes by the nickname Jitters. Pulling it free, it turned Roland's Doom into a place of vile death, and if he had known what would have happened, he cut off his own hands to keep them from grasping that rune-carved wood. But regrets will not change what had happened. After the Scythe was freed, a change rippled through the mine. The Worgen fell upon them from everywhere, clawing from hidden holes at their feet and dropping from silent perches above. Half their men fell in those first panic minutes. The rest, including Jitters, they tried to flee. As he ran, he saw so many of his brothers taken by tooth and claw, heard so many screams cut short, or gurgled to silence. For all he knows, he might be the only human to escape that place. After surviving the flight from Roland's doom and losing the Scythe in the process, he decided to hide away within a barn owned by a man named Sven. For a few days he stayed there, never letting anyone know that he was there. From his hiding place, he observed that the family, they seemed like good, loving people. And Sven, he would decide to leave his farm to travel to town. He kissed his wife and smiled to his children, promised to return soon with toys and sweets. The poor man. That was the last time he saw his family unmutilated, as from that wind past, the Dark Riders rode out in search of the powerful artifact that they had sensed. These Dark Riders, they were once merchants, foolish enough to try and sell the corrupted Guardian some fake artifacts. And in retaliation, Medivh he cursed them, forced them to forever scour the world for actual magical artifacts and bringing them back to Karazhan. Very similar to the Nazgul from Lord of the Rings, and they're not undefeatable. In the comics, they were taken on, even losing some of their stolen artifacts. And even in-game, during Legion, they played a part in 3 different artifact questlines. There was Apocalypse, Ultalesh, and the Scythe of Elune. All 3 led heroes into Karazhan, where they took out the Dark Riders leader named Eredin and claimed their mighty weapons to use in the war against the Legion. But back to this storyline. The mother, she had no idea about the artifacts. All the same, she tried to lie to the riders who had driven up to their farm. She tried to keep her children safe. A bold and dangerous gambit. One that might have paid off if the riders did not possess magical means of uncovering the truth. The artifacts, they found out, it was not here. The woman was lying, and the family inside was useless to them. In front of Jitters' eyes, they were slaughtered. He cannot describe what happened next. It's clear in his mind, make no mistake, but even his wretched soul cannot put to paper the events of those next few grisly minutes. I can only write that Sven's family was killed, and soon after Sven returned to this grim, deathly scene. Such grief was in him that I was afraid to show myself. And so afraid was I that it would find me that I fled from my hiding spot in the barn. I do not know where Sven might be now, but I pray that he will someday find peace. Easy for Jitters to say. He wasn't the one returning home only to find their entire family slaughtered, ripped into little pieces. And Jitters, making his escape, didn't go unnoticed either. Sven Worgen, he recruits heroes to help him figure out who that shadowy figure was that he saw the night his family was killed. We track Jitters down. We get our hands on this journal, which details the horrific events. And all of this puts us on a path against the Dark Riders. Sven has seen them before, speaking to the wizard Morbent at the Forlorn Row. A well-known necromancer and an ally to the Dark Riders. Not an easy target to take out, as he has dark enchantments to protect himself from physical assaults. Not to mention the undead that are guarding his home. To get to them, we'll need to be properly armed. All the way to wetlands, there's his sunken ship. Its cargo is light-forged iron, a precious metal. For items crafted from it, they strike with holy truth. If we are to face this Morbent we'll need such a weapon. We'll need this Morbent's Bane. The Dark casts magical protections. They're struck down with our weapon. But the Necromancer himself is also no easy foe. All the same, he is brought low, and a small bit of peace is given to Sven. The Dark Riders, they're still out there somewhere, but at least Morbent has been defeated. Still, just a peaceful life. That would not be Sven's fate. Somewhere along the way, he ends up getting bitten by a feral Worgen, which gives him the Worgen curse. Thankfully, in the meantime, the Worgen of Gilneas, they've traveled to Duskwood to help out those that they can. Those still out there that haven't lost their minds fully to the beasts. Even Jitters helps out. The trouble that he unleashed upon Duskwood. The guilt, it must be eating away at him, so he does what he can to try and make it right. A Worgen that we captured, a Worgen that we try and save. It turns out to be Sven. The rage that takes hold of him as he remembers what Jitters has done. Bringing the Worgen to Duskwood, leading the Dark Riders to his farm, hiding while they murdered his family. Every speck of suffering within his life is Jitters' pathetic fault. He wants to kill him. The beast inside, it screams for blood. But letting Jitters go is going to be the only thing separating him from the beast now. Slowly, with immense effort, he regains control of himself. And he decides to focus his attention not on Jitters, but rather on Morbent again. Despite heroes of the past striking him down, the Necromancer has now returned as a lich, spewing forth his darkness upon this unholy land. This time, we thankfully won't have to travel half across the world trying to find a weapon to strike him down. We can actually rediscover the weapon that we used before and hopefully end Morbent Fell once and for all. And while we're at Ravenhill, which was actually a proper town once upon a time, we can't leave the cemetery without talking about Mor'ladim, known to most as that annoying rare that sneaks up on you, suddenly ending the life of unaware adventurers. The tale behind it's actually quite tragic. Mor'ladim, or Morgan Lattimore as he was known in life. He was once a great and noble knight who fought with arcaes in hands for the defense of the innocent, the poor and the afflicted. At the age of 32, when war broke out in Lordaeron, he was called at the side of the legendary paladin Ulfr the Lightbringer to fight against the orcs and the undead. Leaving his wife and children in the safety of his home, Morgan left for war. And the years passed, the war dragged on, and Morgan, he would witness many horrific events, including the banning of the Paladins of the Silver Hand, the death of Ulfr the Lightbringer, and the spread of the plague. The only thing that kept him from the brink of madness was the knowledge that he would someday be reunited with his wife and children, but by the time that he got home again, he found that the land had completely transformed. He asked the people about his family, but none could give him the answers. A priest in Darkshire, as the town was now called, they said that they might search the cemetery at Ravenhill for a gravestone. Against his better judgment, he decided to stop by the Ravenhill cemetery, and for hours he walked amongst the gravestones. Then he saw them, a small, untended plot amongst the many, with 3 small gravestones. A feeling of dread it washed over him as he approached. Morgan brushed off the dust of the most prominent gravestone to reveal the name, simply carved upon the grave. Letters spelled out his worst fear. Liz Lattimore, beloved wife and mother. In blind fury, he started to strike the gravestone with his blade, screaming in rage. Something snapped in our once noble knight, and when instant attendants of this graveyard, as they tried to restrain him, they tried to calm him down, he murdered them all. When the rage had passed and realization crept into Morgan's mind, he took his belt knife and stabbed himself through the heart. But a death that was so dark, a mind so tormented, it will not easily find rest. He lived on as one of the restless dead, now striking down any unfortunate enough to walk in his way. We're asked to find him and return with his head. But it turns out that Morgan's grief and despair over the loss of his family, it might have been a little bit too hasty. His daughter is actually still alive, right here in Darkshire. She's now one of the Night Watchers, and it hurts her deeply to know what exactly happened to her father. Perhaps if we bring her family ring to this grave, perhaps the spirit of Morgan can cling on to his daughter's love and find forgiveness in the light. Or at the very least, no longer haunt the innocence of Duskwood. Another resident of Duskwood might be far past forgiveness though. In the northeastern area, there stands Manor Mistmantle, and those in town, they can all tell you the dark history connected to this family name. A story that starts out bright enough. Stalvan Mistmantle, he left notes and letters detailing his journey in life, how he ventured to Westfall and set up a lovely school in Moonbrook to teach the local children. The defies Brotherhood, the state of events in the region. It then forced him to abandon his post, ran into a job as a private tutor to 2 children. There was Giles, a rambunctious boy and a challenge to educate, as well as Tiloa, a seemingly exceptionally smart girl with beauty that he cannot help but notice. Supposedly, the Lord has arranged a marriage for next year. Despite knowing that Stalvan, he cannot help but read the situation entirely wrong. He writes, "Never have I felt the way that I did today." Whilst assisting Giles with his history lesson, Tiloa was outside tending to the flower garden. After a few minutes, she came inside and placed a scarlet begonia in my open palm and smiled at me in such a way that my heart felt as though it was trembling within my chest. Most certain that she shares the same feelings for me now. She even placed her hand on mine this morning. When she smiles, her eyes light up like glittering diamonds. Unspoken words pass between us. I can feel her in my pounding heart and heated veins. Heated veins soon turned sour, as Tiloa had a suitor. She was holding hands in public nonetheless. She just sees her tutor as Uncle Stalvan, a nice old man. Old. At that word, my cheeks flushed with heat. I am but a few years older, and yet she betrays. Downward spiral of despair. First she mocks me, and now she's engaged. The ungracious charlatan was pretending to love, when truly she desired to hurt me all along. A black void, it lurks within me now, and it grows with each waking moment. The blood I shall spill pales in comparison to the tears that I have shed. Once the gruesome deed was done, Stalvan then retreated to his family home in Duskwood, and he stayed there until this darkness it crept into the land and it consumed him. Heroes were asked by Madame Eva to check out this Stalvan character. She has these mysterious powers. She sensed that a granddaughter was in great danger, and this premonition, it leads the heroes on a trail all the way to the manor, where they end his miserable undead existence. Then, with the Catechism revamp, his brother Tobias Mistmantle, he comes to town to figure out what has happened. Nobody really wants to talk about it anymore, so we recover the records on Stalvan, we bring them to Tobias, who then checks out the manor for himself. Seems they're being taken over by rage and fury. Kinda runs in the family. As Tobias, he carries the Worgen curse. He gets the answers that he's looking for. His brother truly is a monster, but for him, that choice hasn't been made yet. He still has his whole life ahead of him. Whether it's going to be death of a monster or death of a man, it's going to be up to him. So far, the heroes of the world, they've been trying to help out those that are trying to live their lives in Duskwood, or those trapped in the undead curse. Their kindness, or their search for gold and experience, it can do a lot of good to the lands, but not so much when dealing with Abercrombie the Embalmer. While pretending to be this helpless old man, he has us run around and do all kinds of chores. We gather a ghost hair thread, which can be used in 1,000 different ways, from binding evil spirits to sewing life into inanimate objects. This is taken from Blind Mary, a poor spirit that tore out her eyes with her own hands, just so that she doesn't have to look at her own monstrous banshee form. We also gather some zombie juice made from rot blossom to keep him warm at night. Best be careful with this stuff. It's so strong that it could raise the dead. Some ghoul rips to make an effigy, a kind of scarecrow to scare away the other ghouls. And finally, a crate with herbs that he lost while running away from a band of ogres. You know, just simple chores for simple heroes. Nothing out of the ordinary here. If only they knew the Embalmer, the name told in one of their children's stories. He was a kindly alchemist, driven mad by the death of his wife Eliza. To restore her, he used dark magic to place his own heart within the bosom of his dead spouse. This did indeed revive Eliza, but it's cursed her with a hunger for human flesh, forcing the Embalmer to keep her buried. His heart is his power, and we're asked to find his wife's grave, retrieve his heart and bring it back while it still beats. Doing this will let the powers over her be broken, but it doesn't exactly stop Abercrombie from using all of those materials to be gathered to create the one, the only
Jitters played too rough.
Stitches wants to play. From Ravenhill to Darkshire, Abercrombie's gift for the mayor. It walks his own path down, and very much like Mor'ladim, you do not want to get in his way. How many poor noobs out there have found their end by this random butcher just walking around? He became such a legend that they also decided to add him as a hero in Heroes of the Storm, and even to this day, people are fooled by the hermit into helping him out. You'd imagine that the people of Duskwood would have made him leave by now, but no such luck. He even sent Stitches Jr. to pet battle in the Drenner's Garrison, and Stitches Jr. to pet battle in the Dulladan Tournament, which means that even after the events of the Cataclysm, Abercrombie is still around. And even after the Cataclysm, the troubles and darkness for Duskwood and Darkshire, they're far from over. During the Legion Rogue artifact questline to obtain the Kingslayers, rogues, they uncovered that the people of Darkshire, they've joined a cult called the Veiled Hand. Now they're allied to the demons. They set their eyes on bringing down Stormwind. Only a few select members are holding their ground, huddled together in a little house. The rest of the town, it's taken over by madness. We can see them carving up dead bodies. They're sacrificing the innocents. Commander Althea Abenlock, she seems to be leading the charge, and we make an attempt at her life.
The Herald has promised us freedom and respect. We will not be denied. You will not interfere. The Legion will rise.
One that she's able to escape from all the way to Stormwind. The city guards, they aren't exactly happy with the rogues just skulking around their city, but the rogues, they don't care. This cult and the Legion, they have to be stopped. So Althea, she is tracked down, interrogated and killed, as well as this herald that she mentions, which saves the city, also obtaining some very nice artifacts to go with it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the major story of Duskwood so far. Seeing its history, seeing the stories that are played out in this zone, there's definitely one of the darker areas that you could find yourself lost in while adventuring through Azeroth. I can't wait to see if they'll ever go back here and continue this storyline. For now though, thank you very much for watching everyone. By all means, let me know in the comments down below which zone you'd like to cover next. You could also decide to subscribe if you like my videos. Leave a like if you enjoyed this one. And early happy Halloween everyone! See ya!